department as soon as the fire department arrived. But they were able to identify where the weapon was being discharged from in proximity. It's hard to tell what floor it is from the outside, but once they gained entry into the hotel in conjunction with security and through phone calls from patrons, they were able to call it down to a possible floor. Once they made entry onto the hallway, they immediately knew what room was in question.
Did he stay in one room, two?
It was one large suite that had 2 rooms.
Can you explain what led you to the 29th floor instead of the 32nd and just how you got to it?
In the interaction with security, they believed it was between the 29th and the 32nd floor. And we had to evaluate each floor moving up.
Is there any
Did you
belief
find
that
the
he
room
was
because of the
here
smoke?
prior to this weekend? Maybe there was some talk that he might have been at Life is Beautiful or a different music festival?
We are researching that. We had information that he may have attended Life is Beautiful, but we haven't confirmed it yet.
Did you find the room because of the smoke detector, because of the broken window? What led
No, we had complaints from customers into security.
And did a SWAT team break down the door?
Yes, they did.
Was he engaged by security before police arrived?
No, he engaged security. He shot through the doorway and struck security guard.
Was unspent ammunition found in the room?
Yes.
Did he say how much?
I don't know.
Was the security guard killed?
Okay, please slow down. Okay?
Was the
I don't think as fast as you.
Was the security guard killed who was shot?
No, he wasn't. He was shot in the leg.
Sheriff, there are reports the shooter might have been employed by a federal agency. Is there any truth to that?
I can't confirm that or deny it. We are still evaluating that.
Can you walk us through it all from the minute that the shots rang out to how you guys got to the hotel room?
No, all the officers, this will be the last question for you. All the officers were assigned to the event. We do have officers that were assigned for other events inside the Mandalay Bay as a matter of weekly practice, specifically the nightclubs. But I'm sure they were not aware of what was taking place, similar to the officers at the event. Officers took it upon themselves to help the customers exit the grounds, and some officers took it upon themselves to immediately go to the Mandalay Bay. There was a team of 6 officers that approached security. They went up the elevators after discussing the situation with the security and obtaining intelligence. And they checked each floor by floor until they located where they believed to be the room. Subsequently, they approached the room, received gunfire, they backed off, and SWAT responded.
Movements. When did he shoot the security guard, and did he continue shooting out of the window after he shot the security guard?
I know that he shot the one security guard up on the 32nd floor, but I don't know if he continued to shoot after that or not.
We have found it's better, instead of securing a perimeter and hoping the person doesn't continue to do acts of carnage associated with their actions, that even a small police response will stop the suspect's actions. And so to answer your question in reference to Mandalay Bay, that training, we were listening and we were paying attention. Officers on their own, without direction of a supervisor, knew what they had to do. They came together, formed a team, made a response, and they didn't wait on SWAT, okay? They said, we have to stop. It's easy to say, well, we're waiting on SWAT. They're the experts in tactical intrusion, but our officers took it upon themselves to act.
To clarify, patrol officers made entry to the room?
No. Patrol officers evaluated floor by floor of the space between 29 and 32 where the suspect was. They formed a security. They evacuated rooms, and they formed a perimeter at the suspect's location. By unfortunate acts of the suspect, the security guard was engaged during that process.
Quick yes, no. Was the security guard in company with officers, or was the security guard alone when?
He was acting independently. He got separated from our team.
Sure, can I just confirm real fast? Mandalay Bay Security identified the room before SWAT arrived?
No. Well, yeah, before SWAT arrived, but not before my officers arrived. They were married or hand-to-hand with my officers when we made entry over to the hotel. And it was a matter, if you recall yesterday, I said between floor 29 and 32. And during that process of evaluating the floors, we received additional information where he was located, and they immediately responded.
Sheriff, what time did SWAT breach this?
I don't have that number for you.
And there's only
one room.
Did he continue to shoot from 10:08 until the SWAT team came in, or why did he stop shooting?
That's for us to evaluate in the investigation.
Sure.
And as the sheriff mentioned previously in the briefing, we had patrol officers actually working another event at the Mandalay Bay who heard the shooting, and they took it upon themselves to form up into a team, enter the stairwell, begin ascending the floors, and also evacuating hotel guests. The SWAT team had to arrive first at the Mandalay Bay before they could take any action. As I mentioned earlier, there was a very heroic security guard who was shot during the search for that suspect. That security guard went up to the room. He was advancing towards the room when the suspect fired through the door at the security guard and struck him. He was able to provide additional information to the police on exactly which room that we were looking at. However, at that time, it's important to note that the shooting had stopped. We're considering it a barricade at that point because it's no longer an active shooter. We're not hearing any further shots.
Is there a theory on why the gunman stopped shooting? Did he see officers outside, or is there a time frame?
The investigation will obviously reveal that, I believe, personally, because the security guard's approach to the room obviously took his attention away and he fired at the security guard, and then the immediate police response that followed on.
Mr. Sheriff, can you tell me about what you're hoping to...
That question.
Can you confirm what time the security officer was shot that approached the door?
You know, it's just moments prior to our initial officers responding up there, so we'll add that to the questions that we can answer again tomorrow.
Do you know when the security guard was separated from the other officers?
It was my understanding before I had said he had gotten separated. That was inaccurate. What had happened was he was conducting an investigation based on customers calling in, and he was personally attempting to locate what was occurring. He happened upon that doorway because it was ajar, which keyed his interest. But our officers were in close proximity, so as you can imagine by the timeline there, as soon as they came out of the doorway of the elevator, he was there. So it happened in a matter of seconds. Yes, sir.
Guard, if you believe he saw the security guard approaching, that might have caused him to stop shooting. If he hadn't seen the security guard approaching, do you believe the shooting would have continued?
No, and I'm comfortable in saying no, and here's why. Because of the same action the security guard would have occurred with our patrol officer that was approaching up there. We had knowledge. He was between 31 and 32. Remember when you asked before, we said 29 to 32. And then subsequently through that time, it got culled down to 31, 32. A customer, a knowledgeable customer, prior military, said it was occurring directly above him, which subsequently the officers were doing their own checks. He was not aware of what that customer had said, and they were conducting, he was trying to pinpoint it. So our officers had learned, because they had a security guard attached to them, that they had recent information the individual was on 32. Okay, so they would have encountered him shortly in that timeline, maybe 60 seconds. And I would assume the same thing would have occurred.
Most of you also now know the name of the Mandalay Bay security guard who you've all named in the media, and I'll just reaffirm to you that Jesus Campos is a true hero. I can tell you now just a little bit more that I know about what he did that particular day. We now know that he was dispatched to what they call a door alarm on the 32nd floor. He went up there to investigate the open door, and as he was doing his job diligently, he came under fire by our suspect. As you know, he was struck in the leg. He turned around and retreated. He notified his dispatch, which was absolutely critical to us knowing the location, as well as advising the responding officers as they arrived on that 32nd floor. I can tell you that this was a remarkable effort by a brave and remarkable man. I want to say today that I don't think we've done a good enough job recognizing him and his actions, and for that I apologize. I just want to take the moment and clear the record that he's an absolute hero.
The timeline, so the security officer tells you on the timeline that he was shot at 10:18. That's when he tells you he was shot.
I can give you the exact time off the timeline off camera. I don't remember. I don't have it in front of me as we sit here. I'd be clear about the timeline, right? What the sheriff and I have both explained to you at different times is information that we had initially. We went back and reconciled it with what was on the body-worn camera as well as what was in our computer-aided dispatch, the CAD data. And so all of that timeline that we represented to you is what we have to the best of our knowledge today.
So just to go back to the security guard, are you able to tell us what time the alarm went off on the 32nd floor and why it was going off? And is it at all possible that the security guard was shot before Paddock was firing into the crowd?
So you have a two-part question, is what time did the suspect go up, or I'm sorry, the security officer arrive to check the door and why? The question, or the answer is that the door alarm went off, indicating that the door was ajar. So the officer was dispatched up to check that specific time. We have it, I don't know what it is. And I'm sorry, your second question?
Is it possible that he was shot before Paddock was even firing?
The question is, was the security officer shot before the suspect was shooting into the crowd? The answer to that is yes, we believe he was shot. That we believe that he was shooting into the crowd, and then the security officer was shot during that event.
Last week, we talked about the single person whose action helped pinpoint the location of the suspect, and that was the Mandalay Bay security guard Jesus Campos. As you might imagine, Mr. Campos was not only injured when he was fired upon, as he did his room check about the door alarm down the hall from the suspect's room, but he was also extremely shaken up by what happened to him. He was able to confirm for us exactly what he heard and saw in the moments before he was shot.
Can I follow that?
But the drilling was not completed.
Did Officer Campos hear drilling?
Yes, he did.
How did Mr. Campos doing?
Can I finish his question, sir?
And he knocked because of the drilling?
No. There's never been anything out in the public forum about knocking. He was investigating an open door. He became of the drilling sound.
Sheriff, what time exactly did Jesus Campos sustain, the injury? On the timeline? What time exactly?
Bear with me while I get that for you.
And I have one other question.
Well, it's fairly simple for me to obtain. What was the question, ma'am?
Can I also ask, in the days
what was the original question?
What time he sustained the injury?
$21.59. That would be $9.59.
Sheriff, can you tell us if the gunman was practicing shooting before this incident that you know of?
No, I can't confirm that.
Sheriff, are you saying that the security guard was injured, Mr. Campos was injured at before 10 p.m. and the shots were then fired at 10:10 p.m. into the crowd? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I don't know where you're getting your numbers, but you are correct. He was injured prior to the mass volley of shooting.
So to follow that, he's shot at just about 10 o'clock. The shots into the crowd begin at 10:05 and go on for, we said at one point 11 minutes, but 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
So can you give us what you think?
Okay, I don't want to get in. I appreciate
there?
what you're saying, Ken.
Thank you. So if Officer Campos or Security Guard Campos was shot at just before 10 o'clock, and the shots out the window, as you described them, there were about.
So let me help you with that, Ken, because you picked up on it. Yes, the timeline associated with the original shot and Mr. Campos has changed through investigation, as I have conveyed to you from the very beginning. In your zest for information, and my zest to ensure the public safety and the calming of their minds, is some things are going to change. Now, they are minute changes. Okay, there's not this all-encompassing answer associated with the information that we presented before. In other words, it's not completely inaccurate. But what we have learned is Mr. Campos was encountered by the suspect prior to his shooting to the outside world.
Do you have any idea why Mr. Campos was near that room when he got shot prior to the actual?
Yes, we had an alarm associated with an open door. It was not the suspect's open door, it was another.
sir. So after Mr. Campos was shot, before the mass shooting happened, did he alert security? Did they know? I'm just wondering if there's was any delay in his reporting? Or
No. He immediately upon being injured notified security of his situation. In close proximity of Mr. Campos being shot, there was also a maintenance worker that presented himself on the 32nd floor, and Mr. Campos prevented him from receiving any injuries.
Sheriff, do you think the suspect's engagement with Mr. Campos maybe sped up the timeline of the shooter?
I would not make that assumption. I'm not privy to that.
There's actually two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Did the security guard, and when did the police know that the security guard was shot before the gunshots at 10 o'clock p.m. or only after the after shooting?
They weren't aware of him being shot until they met him in the hallway after exiting the elevator. Now the timeline. Unfortunately, a great deal of my investigators' time has been preoccupied on this timeline. In the public space, the word incompetence has been brought forward, and I am absolutely offended with that characterization. This is a very dynamic event, very big event. Thousands of people involved, humans involved in documentation, and every venue of information involved in this investigation. So, the information was obtained via security logs, Officer Campos himself, body-worn cameras, hotel cameras, lock interrogation, my dispatch, LVMPD dispatch, hotel and private cameras, and interviews. So imagine bringing all together to ensure that we are drawing an accurate picture. So I'll provide you a little more information on that. I still stand by the time of 21:59, 9:59. It's important that you continue to listen to me. 9:59 is important. It wasn't inaccurate when I provided to you. The circumstances associated with it is inaccurate. Okay? I am very well aware of the MGM statement provided yesterday. I agree with their statement. I'm not in conflict with their statement. But here's what I will tell you. We were provided the time of 21:59 as a human entry into a security log. Through investigation, we have determined that Mr. Campos had encountered the barricaded door adjacent to the suspect's door at approximately 21:59. In his attempt to gain entry to the 32nd floor, he required him to ascend to another level and eventually make access to the 32nd floor. He went to the doorway that he was dispatched to originally to address the open doorway. He mitigated that situation and subsequently received fire from the suspect. When you culminate that timeline associated from the initial 21:59 to the 22:05 timeline that we are still stand by as the initial volley of fire, Mr. Campos received his wounds in close proximity to 22:05. He attempted to relay that information via his radio, and it was confirmed because he also relayed that information via his cell phone. So the timeline associated to both of those sources have been verified. 22:05, the number that was provided earlier, referenced the majority of fire upon our community. We still stand by that time, and that was done by the combination of different sources that I listed for you earlier. 22:17, 12 minutes. That is when our officers first arrived on the 32nd floor. 12 minutes. You are very well aware the suspect fired at approximately 10 minutes. Upon our arrival on the 32nd floor, the firing had ceased. We did not believe we had continually had an active shooter. At that point, we conducted evacuations of the rooms adjacent to the suspect's room, and you know the rest. So there is no conspiracy between the FBI, between LVMPD, and the MGM. Nobody is attempting to hide anything. Reference this investigation. The dynamics and the size of this investigation requires us to go through voluminous amounts of information in order to draw an accurate picture. My intent, like I stated earlier, is to give you the information as I know it, unverified, to calm the public, not to establish a legal case. Everybody understand that? No questions, sir.